You're sitting across the table, and the person in front of you carefully lifts a roasted lizard, takes a bite, and chews as if nothing is out of the ordinary. For most of us, the sight would stir disgust, maybe even revulsion. But in ancient China, that scene wouldn't have been strange at all. In fact, it could have been a moment of healing or even a display of wealth. To make sense of this, you have to put yourself in their shoes. Life in ancient China was fragile. A cough wasn't just an inconvenience. It could spiral into a deadly illness. A fever wasn't managed with aspirin. It was something that could wipe out an entire family. No antibiotics. No hospitals like we know today. Medicine came from the natural world. That meant herbs, minerals, animals, anything that seemed to hold power. And lizards, small as they were, carried a meaning far bigger than their size. Why lizards? To the people of that time, these creatures symbolized resilience and rebirth. Lose a tail, grow it back, almost magical. If it could heal itself, then maybe consuming it, boiled into a tonic or ground in a powder, could transfer that same force into the human body. Ancient Chinese physicians weren't just healers, they were interpreters of nature. And they believed that what a creature represented could be absorbed by those who consumed it. To them, lizards weren't pests. They were medicine. Records show lizards prescribed for asthma, for skin diseases. If someone was struggling to breathe, a lizard stew might be offered. If fertility was the problem, the same creature might appear again. The thinking was symbolic, but also desperately practical. When survival is at stake, what seems bizarre to outsiders begins to make sense. But the story doesn't end with medicine. It takes a sharp turn into wealth and politics. Lizards became more than cures. They became delicacies for the rich. At imperial banquets, roasted lizards were not about hunger, but status. For common people, they meant hope of survival. For the wealthy, they became trophies. That demand created problems. Villagers saw lizards as a way to earn. Catch one, sell it, and you could feed your family for days. But as demand grew, ecosystems were stripped bare. Peasants swept through rivers, hunting every lizard they could find. And when supply thinned, the powerful imposed laws. Hunting certain lizards without permission was punished like stealing grain. The penalties were severe. Imagine the irony. A starving family catching a lizard to survive, only to face punishment for taking what the emperor called his property. These laws weren't protecting lizards. They were protecting access for the ruling class. That tells you something about human nature. Even in desperation, there are rules, hierarchies, punishments. And lizards, of all things, got tangled in that web. For some, they meant life. For others, they meant privilege. For the poorest, they became a dangerous temptation. And the psychology is fascinating. If your child was coughing night after night, wouldn't you cling to anything that promised relief? Hope, even false hope, can be stronger than reason. That's why these beliefs survived. And even today, traces remain. In parts of rural China and Southeast Asia, you can still find dried geckos sold as remedies. Thousands of years later, the practice hasn't disappeared. But here's the twist. Modern science has discovered that certain lizards actually produce antimicrobial compounds in their skin. Those compounds protect them from infection. So maybe the ancients weren't entirely wrong. They didn't know the biology, but they saw patterns. What looked like magic might have been an early glimpse of science. And yet, the human cost was immense. Families sold everything, desperate for healing. They scoured rivers and fields, and still, the sick often died. It's heartbreaking, but it shows how far humans will go when there's nothing else left to try. This wasn't just about eating something unusual. It was about survival, about belief, about power. It was about emperors turning creatures into control. And it was about the strange overlap between superstition and science, where myths led people close to truth without them even knowing it. So the next time you see a lizard dart across a wall, remember this. In ancient China, that tiny creature could mean medicine, money, or punishment. It could mean life for a sick child, or silver for a starving family. It could mean a rare dish on a noble's table, or a death sentence for the poor man who dared to catch it. The story of lizard eating isn't just a curious fact from history. It's a window into human psychology. Faced with sickness, fear, and death, people will do the unthinkable. And sometimes, hidden inside the strangest practices, there's a thread of truth waiting to be uncovered.